Hello again, I'm Joanna Piros, and welcome to Take Two. My guest today, which I'm really looking forward to chatting with, is Dr. Tracy Cocivera. And Tracy is an executive coach. She is based in Toronto, and I have known her for a number of years. And Tracy, there's a very particular thing we want to talk about today, and that is, how is systemic team coaching going to change the world?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's certainly something that as a systemic team coach, we've been discussing with a lot of the coaches, given everything that's going on. And so systemic team coaching can actually do that because it's able to handle the world's gnarly problems. So whether that's climate change or whether that's racism, and the reason why that's popular, why that's possible really, is because it brings the team. It's bringing together people of diverse backgrounds, people of diverse cultures, people of diverse thoughts that really can then dig in and solve those really gnarly problems that we have in the world. So you can't do that from individual leadership alone. You know, the days of hero leadership are gone. And it's really about galvanizing teams and helping them have a really compelling purpose for what's really important in the world.
So help me clarify. People have worked in teams, obviously, before on projects and team-based, and there's been team-based coaching. How is this different?
Yeah, that's another great question. So I would say that people have worked in teams, and there's research to show that 12% of the teams in the world are successful. That teams would say that they're successful. So there's a whole room of teams that are just barely existing, and that's because organizations know that it's going to be a competitive advantage, and there's not a lot of help for that. And so teams really need to learn how to use those teaming muscles and be able to really accomplish what they need to accomplish. And really, from a systemic perspective, it's really important because it's not the team who drives what the compelling purpose is. From a systemic perspective, it's the ecosystem of the team. So it's all of the team's stakeholders that really let the team know what is possible and what they really need to be focused on, so that they're serving their stakeholders' needs and really creating value for all their stakeholders in their ecosystem.
So give me for instance, if you were working with a team as a systemic team coach, who all would be involved in that process?
Well, there would be of course, the internal stakeholders, whether that be the board, whether that be the CEO, their sponsor or their manager. It would be their peers, their direct reports. And it could also be their external stakeholders. So regulatory bodies, could be their customers, not only their customers, but their customers' customers. Could be their suppliers and their suppliers' suppliers. So it's thinking through the broad ecosystem there that really is going to create value for everybody in the ecosystem.
So if I was working on a team being coached by you in the systemic team model, would I be the one reaching out to my customers and my customers' customers to try to get a sense of how we're doing this together, or how does that work logistically?
Yeah, so it could be the team coach, but ideally it's actually the team. The team collectively reaching out to their stakeholders, their customers, and really finding out what is going to be of value for them. And the reason why that's important is because then it also creates the better relationship with their stakeholders, and they can hear firsthand and probe deeper in terms of what's working, where are they really benefiting their stakeholders, and where are they not measuring up.
And so how, you had said, which shocked me, only 12% of teams worldwide feel that they're actually successful. Yeah. How does this increase team success? I can see that it's broadening the perspective on how to approach the business or the task at hand, but how does it actually make the team more successful?
Yeah, so then there's 5 disciplines that we work with the team, and there's as one model, and those disciplines are really looking at the mission. So what's the purpose of the team? What is the team mandated to do? Then there's also the clarifying piece of, okay, now that we know the why of the team, what are we going to do to accomplish that mandate? And then from there, it's the how of the team, or the co-creating. So how are we going to work together in order to create that purpose? And then it's connecting with the stakeholders to make sure that we're really creating the things of value for our stakeholders. And at the center of that all, it's the core learning. So how is the team learning and adapting and really taking in the feedback from their environment, and also taking a future back perspective? So they're not just solving the problems of today, they're also looking at the strategic landscape and knowing what's coming over the horizon that they actually need to be paying attention to today, so they can be really innovative and creative and really dealing with the complexities of that they're facing.
So that's one of the things that I've heard you talk about before, and that's these different horizons that we need to be operating on and looking at. Talk to me a little bit about the horizons, because this is a new way of thinking about your business, right?
Yeah, and it's really taking what we know about strategic planning and really broadening it out. So the three horizons are, what are we currently doing today to remain competitive? So that's the horizon number one. Horizon number three is really what's happening in the future that we can kind of sense, but we're not quite sure yet, but we know it's coming, that we really need to be paying attention to. And if we don't, then we could be in a whole heap of trouble. And so then the second horizon is then really about, what do we need to innovate for tomorrow? So if you go from horizon one to horizon two, then you're really innovating tomorrow's game based on today. However, if you really think out and really from a strategic foresight perspective to horizon three, about what are the disruptors that are really coming over the horizon that we have a sense of, but we don't quite know yet, and then starting to innovate for tomorrow, that makes organizations and teams a lot more competitive around what they need to be doing.
So you've been an executive coach for a number of years, and this is a bit of a departure from the traditional way. Tell me a little bit about your journey from saying the traditional model isn't entirely serving the needs of my clients. What did that look like?
Yeah, and that's a good question too. And I would say that always I've been coaching with the systemic perspective. However, I'm much more deliberate about it now. And there's more frame around it at this point because of the work of Peter Hawkins, of Ruth Wegeman, and Richard Hackman, and really the systemic team coaching is putting more lens on individual coaching. So it's not just enough to be sitting in front of an executive and asking them about what do they want to accomplish. It's really helping that executive understand their ecosystem to better be able to have effective leadership, not only for themselves, for their team and their organization. So it's really increasing organizational performance through either executive coaching or systemic team coaching. And I would say that executive coaching is moving in the realm of systemic coaching as well. And if we as coaches aren't paying attention to the entire ecosystem, then we're not doing our jobs as coaches.
So you said at the beginning that systemic team coaching can be used as a frame to solve big problems, like big global issues, like global warming, like the climate crisis. How would that work? What would that look like?
Yeah, so some of the work that some of my colleagues are doing around that are really bringing different organizations together, self-governing teams together. So the organizations around healthcare, so bringing in different hospitals, bringing in the government, bringing in all of the stakeholders of that ecosystem to a small number of teams, so that they're really focusing on how do we increase healthcare? How do we make that better? And so it's really bringing in all the disparate voices instead of just from one hospital or just from long-term care homes. So it's really taking a broad perspective of who all are in all of our stakeholders.
So theoretically, that makes total sense, but I'm thinking practically, now you're talking about bringing all kinds of people together. It sounds complex, and it also sounds really time consuming. How much uptake has there been from organizations and teams to spend that amount of time and effort?
Well, I think because of where we are today, we need to. And so there are, in order to solve those issues, it does take a lot of time. It does take effort. However, the challenge is if we don't do that, then we're not going to solve the issues. So to your point, I think there's more uptake that organizations that are now realizing that if we're going to move forward, then we really do need sound teams coming together so that we can really solve the issues of tomorrow.
Thank you so much for talking to me today, Tracy. It's always a pleasure to hear what you're up to and these great new ideas. And I hope there is huge take up on this more systemic approach to solving problems. I think it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Me too. Thanks.